What does it really mean to be an atheist? It's a question people usually answer too quickly. Most just say, "I don't believe in God." But that sentence hides a lot of complexity. When someone says they don't believe in God, they might mean very different things. Atheism isn't a single block of thought. It's a wide spectrum. A mental landscape shaped by reason, frustration, curiosity, and sometimes even humor. In this video, we're going to explore 4 types of atheism, and you might be surprised to see which one you belong to. Let's begin with the first kind, the most straightforward one. These atheists say very clearly that God does not exist. Not just probably doesn't exist, not just hiding or uninterested, but simply does not exist. No heaven, no hell, no bearded man in the sky, no divine plan, just the universe, its laws, and the chaos that comes with it. This view is becoming more common. According to Pew Research, in the US alone, over 29% of adults now identify as religiously unaffiliated. That includes atheists, agnostics, and people who simply don't care. In many European countries, the numbers are even higher. In Sweden, for example, about 70% of people identify as non-religious. Why this shift? Part of the answer lies in how science has replaced superstition. A few hundred years ago, lightning was explained as the anger of gods. Today we know it's the discharge of electricity between clouds and the ground. Once you have an explanation that doesn't require a deity, the need for one disappears. This first group of atheists sees belief in God the same way we now see belief in witches or demons, just old ideas we outgrew. They don't hate religion, but they don't see any reason to entertain it either. They see no evidence for God, and they don't feel any emotional gap that religion needs to fill. For them, life is enough. But that's just one type. The second type of atheist sees things a bit differently. They don't say with absolute certainty that God doesn't exist, but they believe that if God does exist, he's completely lost control. Like a scientist who accidentally created a self-replicating AI that took over the lab. These atheists think the world we live in is far too messy, too cruel, too illogical to be the result of an all-knowing, all-loving being who's still paying attention. Wars, genocide, climate disasters, child poverty, systemic injustice. If there is a God, then either he's powerless to stop these things, or he simply doesn't care. And that's no kind of God worth worshiping. In fact, some of these atheists argue that the idea of a perfect creator is impossible. If you were truly perfect, why would you create anything? And if you created something, why would it be so flawed? The philosopher Epicurus posed this dilemma long ago. He asked, "Is God willing to prevent evil but not able? Then he is not omnipotent. Is he able but not willing? Then he is malevolent. Is he both able and willing? Then whence cometh evil?" That question is still unanswered by most theists today. These second-time atheists often grew up with faith they might have believed as children, but as they grew older, the contradictions became too hard to ignore. They saw how religion excused suffering instead of solving it. They heard about miracles that only ever seemed to happen in stories. They watched how religion often demanded obedience instead of offering answers. So they didn't turn into angry atheists, just tired ones, exhausted by the excuses. Now the third type, this one shocks people. These atheists say something very different. They don't deny that God could exist, but they hate the idea of such a being. They say if God showed up, they wouldn't bow, they'd rebel. And some even go as far as saying, if God comes, I will kill him. That sounds extreme, but this attitude doesn't come from nowhere. These atheists are often shaped by personal trauma, political awareness, or deep philosophical dissatisfaction. They look at history and see that religion has often been the handmaiden of oppression. The church burning heretics, the mosque silencing critics, the temple enforcing caste. They don't just see God as imaginary, they see him as harmful, even if he were real. Fyodor Dostoevsky captured this spirit in The Brothers Karamazov when Ivan said, "It's not that I don't accept God, I just respectfully return him the ticket." Meaning, if this world with all its suffering is part of God's grand design, then I want no part of it. This kind of atheism isn't gentle or abstract. It's fierce. It's ethical. It doesn't just ask whether God exists. It asks whether such a being would even be worthy of existence. Some atheists in this group talk about the Abrahamic God, the one who commands genocide in the Old Testament, who sends people to hell for eternity, who demands blood sacrifices. And they say, this isn't a loving creator. This is a tyrant. If you heard this story outside of religion, you'd call it mythology or madness. So they reject not just the belief, but the morality behind it. Then we reach the fourth kind, and this one is the strangest and maybe the most thought-provoking. These atheists aren't interested in God because they see themselves as God, not in an arrogant or delusional way, but in a deeply philosophical one. They believe that consciousness, creativity, and meaning don't come from above, they emerge from within us. So why search for a sky father when the divine is in your own mind? This isn't new. The philosopher Ludwig Feuerbach argued that God is just a projection of human ideals. When we say God is wise, merciful, powerful, we're just talking about the qualities we value most. We turn them into a being and worship them. But in reality, it's us. We are the ones who invented God in our own image. So the fourth type of atheist flips the script and says, I don't need to worship anyone, I'll take responsibility myself. They often mock the endless religious debates. How many angels can dance on a pin? Is it halal or haram to do X or Y? Should you face this direction or that when you pray? Why does a God care about what people eat or wear or say on weekends? It all seems petty, so they step out of the conversation. They say, life is short, I'll make my own meaning, I'll be my own authority. You might think this sounds egotistical, but it's not about selfishness, it's about responsibility. If no God is watching, then it's up to us to make the world better, to help each other, to love, to build, to repair. Without waiting for divine intervention, that kind of atheism doesn't look like rejection, it looks like maturity. So those are the four types. Not just levels of belief, but levels of reflection. There are atheists who see no reason to believe, who find the universe meaningful enough on its own. There are atheists who think God might have existed once but abandoned the mess he made. Then there are the rebels, the ones who, if God knocked on their door, would slam it shut. And finally, there are those who believe that seeking God outside is a distraction, because everything we search for, we already carry inside. What unites all these groups is not certainty. It's honesty. They're willing to say, I don't know everything, but I do know that the stories I was told as a child no longer hold up. And that kind of honesty is rare, especially in a world where religion still holds enormous social power, where questioning can get you excommunicated, disowned, or worse. Atheism is often misunderstood. People think it's just about rejecting religion, but it's more than that. It's about living without illusions. It's about choosing doubt over dogma, evidence over emotion. It's not easy. Religion offers comfort, community, tradition, but atheism offers something else: freedom. The freedom to shape your own beliefs, your own morality, your own path. When people leave religion, they don't just leave rituals, they leave behind a way of seeing the world. And that can be terrifying, but it can also be liberating, because once you stop believing that someone is watching you from above, you realize how much of your life is truly yours. Maybe you belong to the first group, the rational skeptics. Maybe the second, the disillusioned ex-believers. Or maybe you're more radical. Maybe you've looked at history, politics, suffering, and said, if there's a God behind this, I want nothing to do with him. Or maybe you've gone further. You've stopped looking for gods altogether and started becoming the kind of person you once prayed to. Whatever type you are, or if you're still figuring it out, one thing is clear: atheism isn't a single story. It's a conversation. A growing, changing, honest attempt to make sense of a world that often doesn't make sense. So ask yourself, which kind are you? And maybe more importantly, which kind do you want to be?